Hey, so how you doing? Hey, this is Admin from PlexGuide. So basically, we're going to go ahead and kick off the installation of 6069. So I believe there's been a significant amount of changes compared to the last video to warrant this making this video. So it's pretty quick, generically. Definitely if you've seen the old videos. So right now, you're basically going to go to install PG, and then you're going to basically have Ubuntu running. Just a word of warning, avoid Ubuntu live server. Live server has just been known to cause issues. If for some reason you want it, just make sure you know how to kind of work around some of the things. Ubuntu 16 has never been a problem. Ubuntu 16 server has never been a problem, but just kind of a word of warning. Because you're going to get some errors about, dialog package cannot install. And if you search our forums, there's some solutions. So we're going to go ahead and install it. So right now it's conducting a series of updates. Something for many Linux users who are pretty much new to this is that basically it's important to run the updates prior to executing anything. It's something I just really couldn't grasp because most of us are used to Windows or even the Mac OS, and a lot of things are pretty much set up. So when you're installing programs, you don't have any issues. But for some of you Windows users back in the day, you probably remember seeing, hey, net this is missing, the whole net installs. And if net installs were missing, you had a bunch of issues. All right, so basically, it's basically now saying, hey, type it. So we're just gonna go ahead and kick it off here. And so basically when you're installing this, it's gonna just download enough and install enough to do an update, install Ansible, and a few dependencies, and that's basically it. The reason for that is because once it's done, it's gonna ask you what version of PlexGuide you wanna install. So here's the irony. You basically downloaded PlexGuide to install a piece of it, to have it delete itself, to re-download itself to the correct version you want. So it sounds kind of cool, sounds maybe confusing. Point is that I set up PlexGuide so you can basically install the version you want easily. And the reason that's a good thing, because if the newest version is completely botched, then you have the ability to install an older version right away. So there's the last blue menu that's left, the installer. I've managed to get rid of all the blue menus, knock on wood. So here's some quick information. So if you need to get back into PlexGuide, you just type that. If you need to get to the Edge Edition, which I'd avoid, do that. Do PG update to always update PlexGuide. But these commands don't really work yet until you install it right here, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So we're typing PlexGuide again, and you're just kind of wondering. See, there you go. So there's your version. So we're going to do 6069. And again, Edge is not really the version you ever really want to install unless I'm telling you specifically to install it. So there you go. And right now it says it installed, and it's just going to kick off right away. So kind of set that. So right now it's doing an update again. So here's the installing alias commands. That's the commands that I was referring to earlier. It's installing tons of commands for you. PG update, just Docker stuff, everything. Okay, so right now you must set a server ID. The server ID comes into play. Basically, here, let me show you. I dummy proofed it. So if you try to exit it, it won't let you. So until you create it for the first time. But the server ID comes into play for your backup and restore. So right now it's saying, hey, setting up the ID does this for the backup restore. Keep it simple. So my recommendation to you is do not put spaces in it. Just keep it as one word. The reason is it's because it's going to store to your Google Drive. For some reason, if you decide to do a backup and restore, having a simple name makes it easy. So, you just call it server 01, beta 1, whatever you want to call it, fish, So I'm just going to go with test 01. Keep it simple. It's going to ask, do I want to keep that? Yes. And the reason I do that is because if you're not happy with it, it lets you loop back and change the name. And then we're going to go ahead and exit the interface here. And you see how it let us move forward. So right now it's installing a series of dependencies. This is just a bunch of stuff. It takes a while because it's like installing WinZip. It's installing Git. It's just installing probably like 20 or 25 dependencies. So if you're on this for a hot minute, don't worry about it. Just let it sit and let us do this thing. And 99% of the times it works pretty fast. I've probably seen a rare occasion where it could take a few minutes because maybe one of those dependencies are just lagging. Because you got to remember these dependencies are pulling from different parts of the internet. And the one thing that's really surprised me about Linux and a lot of these developers and a lot of these things that go on is how readily available many of these resources are, and not having issues. Okay, so I'm trying to think what else. If you check out the rest of our YouTube videos up here, it will basically help you if you're really new with some of the concepts that you see here on PlexGuide. everything from installing the Google Drive with rclone to what the GC Feeder Edition is to the welcome video. There's tons of resources there for you. So please check that out. Also check out our Wikipedia too. So if you check out our wiki, you'll see on the right hand side there, or you'll see there, it will basically take you and show you tons of things that you might be looking for. So let's see, that's okay. Looks like that's about done. Okay, cool. So right now it's installing a series of folders, and it's modding everything for you. Chmod, chown, all that good stuff. The pain in the ass stuff that most Linux users, brand new users, basically encounter. Because when PlexGuide was first developed, version 4, so version 4 was like all root permissions, which I didn't realize how bad that was. And running all root, everything can be accessible. Definitely running on our remote server, because basically I was building it just for a local virtual machine. Okay, right now what you're seeing is it's installing Docker. This piece takes a little while, and it does adapt to either 16 or 18, not 14 ever. But long story short, PlexGuide 5 fixed a lot of those issues, and we went to a lot of blue menus. And then from lessons learned, PlexGuide 6 has been developed. And right now, this is the reason why you're seeing all this wonderful information. Because if you have errors, it basically spells out what the error is for you. Some new users, or it was really new users, like, hey, can I hide the code? You really don't want to in this case, because if you hide it and you run into an issue, you can't see anything. So PlexGuide 5 was actually kind of set up like that. It was just supposed to be like, hey, pretty blue menus, and you kind of float from menu to menu, and that's basically it. But the problem was that there was an error. We kind of had to trace everything down. Okay, so for some of you who see this create PlexGuide network, if this fails, it means that you're trying to think. If you ever see this error about PlexGuide failing on any of your Docker containers, it means that Docker did not install correctly. Okay, now it's installing a Docker assist. Okay, so this is the new updated watchtower. Some of you are probably familiar with the blue version of it. So basically it's saying watchtower auto updates your containers. That's a good thing and a bad thing. Good thing is that it keeps them up to date. Bad thing is there's a a bugged version released. Well, you got the bugged version. Okay, so normally most of the times I usually pick number 3 because I like to manually update my Plex. There's been rare occasions where Plex has been bugged. You can do all auto update, or you can do never update. So if you're going to do conduct manual updates yourself, what it means is I believe if you restart your server, it does, but also rerunning the program will also update it. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and pick number 2 just to make it simple. And I did build some dummy checking into this, so if you never pick it, it's just going to loop. So trust me, I try to think all these scenarios through, so because you fail to do certain things, it causes errors down the road. Okay, so installing MOTD. So basically that's just a little pretty load up that starts up in the beginning that you'll see once you have PlexGuide installed. Okay, now it's installing rclone 1.43. So you need this very specific version, 1.43, for a lot of the rclone features that are used along with that I have. Cleaner Essentials is pretty much setting up. Right now it's installing gcloud, and the reason for this is that I built it in so you can directly interact with some of the Google products and pulling keys. So it cut out a lot of the manual processes. Some of you probably manually remember getting all those JSON files and having to upload it. Hey, I still think it was an ingenious process how I developed it. It's me who developed it, and I think it's great. But to do the cloud CMD and to have those keys upload in the process. But again, the more steps and the more processes there are, the more likely people mess things up. So, I was kind of forced to rethink it and spent a good several days building out that process. Many new users, you won't have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay, this is very key. You can only set this one time. In theory, you can kind of delete it, a variable, and set this up again. But the reason after you set it and you're using it, you don't want to ever change it again is because each edition has its own settings that can mess up the other. So these two right here don't use Google Drive. The first one and the fourth one use Google Drive. So the first one is pretty much the standard install that most people are going to install, right? Yep, you're going to sign up for Google Drive and you're going to set this up. The reason for it is because it's easy to do. But some of you may not have the funds, or you have a lot of hard drives and you don't have a big Plex server you really care about running. You're like, hey, I just got like 6 terabytes of content or 2, and I just want to set up using without Google Drive. Also, you can set this up on remote servers too, number 2 and 3. So you may have a VPS, you want to go solo edition, and you may want to just have like, 30 gigs of content on your Plex. You may be one of those people who just like watch and burn and destroy your stuff. The multi edition is a little bit complicated to set up. I mean, I made it easy to set up on my end, but PlexGuide does not format your drives. That's beyond me. So if you ever tried formatting drives through Linux, good luck. Because not only do you have to format it, but you have to make Linux recognize your drive, and it's a little bit of a lengthy process. But for you, those of you who know how to do it, once you have, Linux recognizes that other drive properly, you can basically mount it and in this edition, and it will recognize them all. It will merge all your hard drives together and make one big ass Union FS out of it. Awesome, ain't it? And actually, it uses not Union FS. Shoot, I forgot the name of it. It's another multi-FS or something like that. But I just kept the naming scheme the same. So we're GC Feeder Edition. This is an edition that deploys on Google Cloud, and basically it gives you a gig up, gig down connection. And yeah, you can deploy a crazy container, and it just downloads all day. So right now, you see that everything is installed. Pretty simple, ain't it? So. We'll just go through some quick things here. So obviously, one, exit PlexGuide. So you notice how easy that was. So now these commands will work. So if I type pg update, remember what I was talking about earlier? About the commands work? See, there you go. So you recognize that. So in the future, if you ever need to do an update, you're going to go ahead and do that. So that's it. So it updated. I mean, we're already on 6.069, but in reality, that's how fast it really is to update. Mounts. So this menu's changed around a little bit. So right now, I have PG Move and PG Blitz that helps move your files to your Google Drive. PG Blitz is what most people like because you can move more than 750 gigs per day. If you don't move more than 750 gigs per day, just go with PG Move. PG Move is dead simple. You don't have to worry about key creation. It just uploads your stuff and you call it a day. Just understand that there's a slight, it uploads it at 10 megabits per second on purpose, so you don't go over the 750 gig cap per day. PG Blitz, you can set up multiple keys. I can show you what it looks like real quick. You see right here? So you can set up multiple keys. So here's the key management interface. And there you go. So you can build your keys out and it'll do everything for you. It's going to log into your Google Drive and build your keys out. But again, it's a lot easier now. And again, by all means, it works fine. But if you don't see yourself uploading more than 750 gigs per day, just go with PG Move. Note that PG Blitz is only unencrypted. The encrypted process is pretty complicated to set up. For you to wait on PG Blitz and wait for encrypted, I can just say good luck. It's something that I've been playing with over time, but because of the numerous changes, it's a pain in the butt. I personally use the unencrypted. As long as you don't share your Google Drive out openly, you're going to be fine. So stick with the unencrypted. As crazy as that advice sounds, as long as you don't openly share your drive, you're going to be okay. All right. And like I said, I'm the guy who builds the damn thing. So PG drives, this is simply for those who just want, like let's say you're setting up a second server. You're just setting up a second server, or you just want to have a read-only drive. Like let's say you already have Google Drive and you just want to deploy Plex. You can use this because there's no reason for you to move files when it's just a read-only server. So you can deploy all the other programs too. So the goal is you just set up a mount and that's it. It's just Plex is just reading it. There's no movement going on. And the reason I set that up is because there's no point in setting up extra things if you're going to set up a second or third server. Or you may just set up only read-only server and just might not be uploading content anymore. Okay. Traffic, this is a reverse proxy. Long story short, if you have a domain, you can basically set it up where I don't really need to demo this, but you can use like GoDaddy, purchase a domain, set up your API key. My wikis will cover it, and it's kind of pretty much it's kind of obvious what you have to do. But you can end up with a website. So you can say, portainer.mydomain.com. This will deploy all this for you. And you can set up a top level domain application. So if you want it to go to NetData or Plex or whatever, if you type mydomain.com, it will literally go to that app for you. So all that's built out for you. Pretty cool, huh? And trust me, that's been a long, painful process originally with me in design years on that one. Okay, so AppGuard basically closes out your ports. If you're using this sort of virtual machine at home, or something that's behind a secure environment, you really don't need to close out your ports. It kind of causes problems in some cases to close out your ports. But those are for those who want to have a website. You got a remote server, dedicated IP, you can close out your ports. Do this if you really, really need to. AppGuard also does protect against like programs like NetData. NetData has no built-in protection. So I'm continuing to refine this if you have any issues. So AppGuard, oh, I'm getting all mixed up. Okay, so that's server ports. AppGuard is what generates passwords for you. So you need to close out your ports and then generate your password. Because if you, for example, if I go to netdata.mydomain.com, then it will ask for a username and password. But if you have your ports open, AppGuard can't protect you on that. Sorry if I kind of got those a little bit mixed up. So if you need to close out your ports and enable AppGuard. You can have your ports open and enable AppGuard, but again, AppGuard can only protect you through your domain because it uses this reverse proxy right here to protect you. So the meat and potatoes right here is the program installer, and you'll notice how simple it is to pretty much deploy something. So if I just type netdata, just want to deploy that and pull an image and blasey, it's going to be almost done. And once it's done, it's going to show you a series of addresses, and that's pretty much it. So, and note, if you don't have a domain set up, don't worry about it. You can just use your IP address. Trying to think what else. So you see right here. So right now I'm going to access it here. So this is basically on my local network. So we're going to take this, and then we're going to paste and go, right? You're challenging me today, Chrome. There we go. And there you go. See how fast that container loaded up? So those are just service stats. Pretty cool, huh? Shows your CPU usage and everything. But again, this is a program you don't openly on the web because, it talks about your users and all kinds of good stuff. Basically, you're going to help the hackers do recon, right? So we'll just launch one more program just to show things that are working. Let's see what we can do here. We can do Sonar. And you get to pick an image you want. And that's basically it. Some people may ask, so the PlexGuide does have a backup and restore feature. People ask, hey, if I restore my data, what should I do first? Restore it, or should I launch the program? I would recommend for you to restore the data and then launch the program. The reason for it is because so you don't have any issues. But if you do it the other way around, it really doesn't affect things. So just something to take note of. You may not care now, definitely if you're a new user, because you haven't really seen the backup process. Just to let you know that I'll make a separate video about how UnionFS, G Drive, and all that stuff works, because it's kind of a long process understanding it. But understand at the end of the day, everything works under UnionFS. Your G Drive, your team drive, your local drive, just everything mounts, everything merges with UnionFS. So if we check out Sonar, Sonar should be under 8989, and there we go. See? So that's how easy it is to launch your container. So just kind of had to give you a demo view on that. Plex enhancement tools. So basically there's two things. So PG Track, originally Tractor developed by James. It'll help blow up your Sonar. So if you don't want to type all these shows in and you just want to add thousands of shows, use that and execute a series of commands, and it will just stuff Sonar to death. You might have like a backlog page. And this is for not torrents, this is all for news groups. Plex Code Tools, if you want to install that, you can install that. Basically it installs like an unsupported Plex app store that installs many things. Here, PG Feeder Edition. So I have a separate entire video on this, but for some reason, if you want to deploy a Google instance or virtual machine, you can use all this. Look, I built it out for you. Use all this, and you'll be able to log into it through this version of PlexGuide that you have installed somewhere. And Google has a 1 gig fiber connection, and so my recommendation is you have $300 worth of credits, enable it, deploy the VM, set up Sonar Radar, restore your data if you have it, and then use PG Track and have it blow up. And I say for about a good 3 months, almost at maximum speeds, it will stuff your Google Drive. So I typically seen 2 to 5 terabytes being uploaded a day. So this is all free. Feel free to use that. And just to note that you can use other email addresses once your credit runs out. Just use a debit card. I just changed the name, the first name, and it tends to work over and over. So you get the $300 worth of credits. VPN service installer. So basically I set this up. I'm not going to do it right now because it's going to actually try to install it. But if you install this, your machine acts as a free VPN. So if you have a Hertzner Cloud, Hertzner whatever, or you have OVH, then you can actually connect like this right here. See, you can actually connect to your server, and your server will act as a VPS. This is not meant for you to do torrenting and all that. So it's like, hey, might as well, you know, have a free feature here. Here's a system auditor and stuff like this. So if you ever need to look at things, so you can benchmark your speeds, speed tests, everything you need. So feel free to use this if you need to. Sorry, I'm almost done. Because I've just been adding more and more. So backup and restore, what we talked about earlier. One thing you have to take note here is the current ID and recovery ID. A lot of people don't pay attention to this. Your current ID is that one we set up earlier. Remember in the very beginning of the video? Well, if you're going to recover, that means you're not going to use the same ID, because that meant at one point you had a different server with a different ID. That's why this, you're like, aha, that's why this is important now. So if your previous server was called test 10, you'll change it to test 10. The reason is because when it checks your Google Drive, it's going to look for a folder called test 10 and restore your data. That is why it is important. You also have to have rclone configured, obviously, so because there's no way for it to connect to your Google Drive. Okay. What else do we got? Settings menu. We've kind of cut this down quite a bit from unnecessary stuff. For those of you, this is very important. For those of you who have a second hard drive, but you're not trying to use it, or you just have a free second hard drive, you can have all your processing offload to that second drive. Again, you have to format your own drive and all this stuff, but once Linux recognizes, you can do this. So, you know, all that sonar and all that other stuff, you may not want it to collide with your primary drive, because your primary drive may hit almost zero space, and then your Plex is, I mean, not your Plex, but your box is becoming stuffed to death. So it would be smart if you change it to a second mount. So you can use that processor. You can go ahead and speed up your processor to stay on. Kernel modes, I don't touch that. Watchtower we saw earlier. Import media, I haven't really used it much, but if you just got media just laying all over your, you know, computer, feel free to use this. And they change the time of your server. Look at that. Even that is there for you. Other than that, that's pretty much it. So I hope this video has helped you. We did forget one thing. The only time you use this troubleshoot is basically to install PlexGuide. So you can install things, you can run the pre-installer again. So there you go. Got it. Okay. So long story short, if you see a globe, please highlight over that, subscribe, like to our video, comment. Again, really does help with PlexGuide, getting noticed on the web. We do appreciate everything the community does. This has always been a community-led effort. This would not exist without the help of like Figure 8. This, there's just so many people. If you look at our GitHub thing, there's like 50 people that we have there. So like I said, design gears and, you know, just, sorry, it's just like so many people, you know, Terza, Physic, you know, so DQ, who helped me originally in the beginning, definitely with the encryption stuff. But again, highlight the globe, subscribe, please like, and if you got time to even donate to the project, all that money basically helps pay for is all this stuff, including the servers, computers, and everything else that's needed for research. Thank you for your time. Have a good one.